Welcome to Somali TV from our studio in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Abdelrazak Dis, and we have today Rick and Barbara from Braver Angels, and they will talk about the political polarization in America these days. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We also have Mohammed Amin, who will be doing the program with us today. Welcome, Mohammed, to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks. The first question that I would like to ask you, as we know, the political polarization has reached its height these days, especially the 2020 election and how the election was disputed. We all witnessed what happened at the Capitol on January 6th, that overturning the election resulted by some of President Donald Trump's supporters. So what are you guys, can you tell us more about Braver Angels and what it's doing to close that political polarization in America? Go ahead.
So Braver Angels was started in 2016 after the election, the presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And the people who founded Braver Angels were really concerned about all of the divisions in America. And not that people disagree with each other, but how they were treating each other, the people with whom they disagreed. That we had gotten to the point where we were starting to feel distrust and even contempt for people that voted differently. And seeing each other as the enemy is not the way forward in a democracy, and they wanted to find a way to do something different. So they brought together people who had just voted in that election and had very strong feelings about it. They brought together people who had different political views to have a structured conversation to help them understand each other, understand where the other side was coming from. And it was a profound experience and a great success. And based on that, they developed a series of workshops that teach these fundamental communication skills so that you can communicate effectively with people with whom you disagree, and developed a whole series of opportunities for them to practice and learn these skills: debates, book discussions, town halls, community discussions, things like that. Braver Angels talks about reds and blues, and by that they mean, for reds are people who are or lean conservative in their politics, and blues are people who are or lean liberal in their politics. But about a third of Americans consider themselves independent, but they lean one way or the other. So they don't talk about political parties, they talk about reds and blues. So in all these events and workshops, they bring together reds and blues and practice these methods of positive communication so that they can possibly find some common ground. The goal is not to change anybody's minds about their policies, their politics, or their values. The goal is to change their views of each other as fellow Americans. And that's the way forward, we think.
Yeah, just to follow up with that one. Can you explain a little bit more? What do you mean by the views of each other as Americans? How they perceive one another? Or?
Well, there's, and you might want to jump in on this, but there's a lot of differences in what we think needs to happen with the country. And different policy positions that the different political parties promote. What we're focused on, though, is this feeling that the other side, the people who voted differently from me, are trying to destroy America.
Oh, okay.
And people on both sides have that feeling, and it's making it almost impossible to have a conversation about how we can work together to make a better future. And it's getting, as we saw on January 6th, and before, it's getting, in some cases, so bad that there's actual violence, and we need to turn away from that.
All right, thank you. Rick, could you tell us a little bit more about, Barbara mentioned that reds and blues were brought together. So why this grassroots movement is important?
So Absolutely. Thank you for the question. As Barbara described, I think very well, that the tribal nature of our politics has gotten completely out of control.
Right.
Most people are not extreme, but the depolarization, the divisions that we have right now are driving people towards extremes. So, we have to work to reverse that trend, which is why Braver Angels and other efforts like that in our country are so important. We're at a point now where we are unable to find consensus agreement on not only our problems, we don't even understand the nature or the causes of our problems. As a result, this ability, like Barbara talked about, to try to understand each other, to try to find common ground with each other, can create a foundation for us to work together to solve problems at the community level, and eventually maybe to put pressure on politicians to do the same thing.
Okay, that's a good initiative. Muhammad Amin, could you tell us a little bit more about how this political polarization has manifested in the immigrant communities, especially from East Africa?
Well, thank you for the question. I would say this is a much needed program and workshop within our community. This is something that high school kids can get involved with. Teachers, educators can get involved with. This is something that people who are in the conflict resolution process can get involved with. And the reason why is because you can get two groups of people who don't agree with each other on anything, but teach them how to talk to each other without offending one another, without pushing one another, in such a way that they can get their points across. This is very important. If you look at our Somali community right now, politically, even back home, there is an issue of people disagreeing with each other very strongly. But they all want the same thing. Unfortunately, they talk the two different ways, and that leads to problems. And with this program here, you can take that conflict resolution process of it and apply it. We're not here to change people's minds. You are who you are, you believe what you believe, and you practice what you practice. But what they're teaching is a way to communicate with the other side without offending, without trying to tear down and trying to denigrate or dispose of so easily the ideas. So this is very important. For our community, I would say, if you're an educator, this is a program worth your while. If you're a student in a group who has conflict resolution program within your school, this would be worth your while. This would be something worth your while bringing back to your community.
Thank you, Muhammad Amin. Barbara, I'm coming back to you. Why Braver Angels want to get East African communities, especially the Somali communities, get involved in this grassroots movement?
Well, the Somali community is a really substantial part of, certainly here in Minnesota and elsewhere. And this is an effort that, that needs all Americans to come together. So we wanted to make sure that we were engaging and involving the Somali community as an important facet of life in Minnesota.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's why it's important. Okay. Rick, coming back to you, I just want to ask, this political polarization, if it's not done something about it, it can lead to severe or grave consequences for the society and the country at large. So could you mention some of that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We've already talked about the 6th of January.
Right.
Barbara and I watched that, and I'll note, Barbara is blue or liberal, and I'm red or conservative. So we, in our own marriage, this is something that we've had is a reality, our political differences. Obviously, we also think that good people can disagree.
Right.
But we watched that together on the 6th of January, and felt like we were looking over the edge of the cliff to what could happen if things kept getting worse. And so we really strongly feel like this is maybe our last opportunity to step back from that, for people, for all the grand majority of people who are not extremists, to pull together and reject that kind of well, to reject the demonization of the other side, of the other tribe, if you will, and to reject that approach to politics and the political violence that can emanate from it, as we've seen in the last year. Instead, we need to take the route that Braver Angels proposes and encourages and helps people with, which is to try to talk and listen to each other, to try to understand each other, to try to find common ground so that we can work together.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Muhammad Amin, you might came here as a young kid, or you might immigrated from Somalia, or you were born here, but your parents very mature. They came from Somalia, and having witnessed to being in a second country, and this is the third country now they moved to. Do you have any feelings that you might flee United States of America if this polarization continues?
Well, we see America as the last hope of humanity, in the sense that there's freedom, rights, and liberties here in this country for everyone under the sun. I would say what we saw in Somalia was the formation of tribes and the tribal conflict taking up and picking up and ticking up. And what we're seeing in America today is tribes again. You know, whether they call themselves blue, whether they call themselves red, whether they call themselves the far right, whether they call themselves the far left. These are tribes. They live in communication bubbles, meaning that they only hear what they want to hear and nothing more than that. And they live in communities that organize themselves within their own spheres.
Okay.
And they don't trust the other side. The other side is the enemy. We're saying, look, take a step back.
Yeah.
Come to our workshops. Learn how to talk. Not to try to convince the other side that you are right, but to at least hear what the other side has to say. And this is important. And this is because it is civil discourse. In this country, we've always had that open market of ideas, which has always been protected. But now we have a situation whereby even if someone says something, anything, there's a group that wants to cancel them. It's called cancel culture. We're moving in a direction which basically is pushing our society and our community to a point whereby we will reach a point whereby the division is so deep we cannot function. And that is bad for our country. And we've seen that before in Somalia, where the tribes could not function. The basic forms of tribes and the way the tribes used to deal with each other was superseded by guns. Before guns, it was loud voices. And right now we are at the loud voices part. And what we don't want is to go down that road. Not here in America. Because if we lose this country, there is nowhere else to turn to. Nowhere else at all.
So this is, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I could supplement that, I mean, this is what I'm talking about when I said that felt like we were looking over the cliff. The next step is more and more serious political violence, potentially ending up in civil war. And the antidote to that is for everybody of goodwill, who's not extreme, to pull together and work against it. No, it's up to us. Nobody's going to come and save us. It's up to us. In the Democratic Republic, it's up to the people, and that's all the people.
Okay, and Barbara, I think we all share, as Americans, the same destiny, and we have the same goal that we need to achieve. You know, to live in life, liberty, and you know, the pursuit of happiness. Yes. So you are a Democrat, he's a Republican, and how do you agree on the issues that you have disagreement with?
Well, I think it's been a process for us in our marriage to learn how to deal with that. I think early on, we tended to just avoid the topic to keep the peace at home.
Okay.
And we agree on so many other things in life and how we want to raise our children and our work and so on. So we just left politics to the side. But as time went on, it became more and more important to be able to talk about these things and really understand each other. Some of those conversations have gone better than others.
Okay.
But through the whole thing, you know, we hung on to knowing that the other person is a good person, and respecting the views as being well intentioned. these conversations have helped me because sometimes, you know, most of my friends are liberal, and I would have conversations and people would say things and it all just felt intuitively true.
Right.
And then I would say something to Rick and he would say, well, have you thought about this? And it makes you question. It doesn't, you know, the conversations wouldn't always change minds, but you start to see where your blind spots were and really come to an appreciation. I think our politics, I mean, what's happened in our marriage in those conversations is something that needs to happen at the community and the national level because you need the perspectives of both sides to come to the strongest answers.
Okay.
Both sides have something to offer the dialogue and have something to offer to the country. And I think without either side, the country would go down paths that aren't the best. We need to check each other.
Okay, good question. Rick, and how can those who are watching us right now get involved in this initiative?
So there's a variety of ways, and I know Barbara has some things to say about this as well, but first of all, please go to the website for Braver Angels, braverangels.org,
okay.
And braverangels.org/Minnesota for the Minnesota State Alliance. But there's a lot of information there on the different activities, but you can sign up to be a member. It's only $12 a year, but you can participate in events without being a member first to get an understanding of the organization and what it has to offer. So the first step is just being a member. After that, it's well, before and after that, it's engaging in the activities, the workshops. I'll talk about one that I did recently as a red. I was asked to have a one-on-one conversation with a blue, not Barbara.
We've done that.
That was practice. But it was actually a blue who lives in California, and we had 2 phone calls and had a structured discussion about politics and about things that are important to us, so that we could learn from the other one. And it went so well that we're going to continue those discussions after this structured discussion has ended. And I'll also note really quickly that what we've already learned from Braver Angels in the last few months has, I think, already helped our dialogue improve the way we're handling that. But there's lots of ways. Obviously, as ambassadors, you know, helping with outreach. There's all these different events that we're talking about: workshops, debates, book discussions. Need event organizers. You can write letters to the editor. There's lots of different ways to get involved.
So in these workshops, people exposed to someone else who has different political views of the other one, and then they have this conversation? Or?
Well, there's a couple of different kinds of workshops, and I can just briefly explain some of the main ones.
Right.
One of them is where they specifically bring equal numbers of reds and blues together and lead them through conversations to explore how both sides feel about the other side and to understand each other better. Again, the aim is not to get them to agree, but just to get them to understand each other better. That's the red-blue workshop.
Okay.
The first workshop that we did, though, was called Skills for Bridging the Divide. And that was straight up talking about communication skills, how to listen effectively, how to present your own views effectively so that the conversation can continue. They have workshops on families and politics, because sometimes when family members disagree, it's even harder to talk because you've got all your family dynamics on top of the political differences. They have workshops on depolarizing within. So what are your own thoughts and assumptions that make it, contribute to polarization? Or if you're talking with a group of people who believe the same politics that you do, if one of them starts demonizing the other side, do you have the skills to go in and change the conversation onto a more positive footing? So those are some of the workshops that they do. And then they do these, as I was saying, debates where you can come together. There's a topic and people speak for the topic and against the topic. But the way that it's structured, it's meant to increase understanding, not to have one side win.
Okay.
So.
All right. Muhammad Amin, How do you think East African communities can contribute or participate in this program?
I would recommend teachers, educators within our community. I would recommend students within our schools who, for example, have issues concerning their school where there's a conflict between individuals or conflict between groups within the community. These workshops will help you tremendously. Braver Angels is a program which you can participate, learn, and guess what? You can become a workshop runner. You can run your own workshops down the road. And the skill sets you learn are very valuable, because if you ever go into the corporate world, you will need this skill set. You know, if you ever go into any organization, whether you're a teacher, policeman, educator, or even a nurse, you will need this skill to talk to somebody with empathy, to talk to somebody with understanding, to make sure that even though they disagree with you, you can still convey your message in a manner that is respectful, dignified, and humane. This is important. This is a skill set we need in our community now. When I say now, you can look at our politics. It is brinkmanship. It doesn't matter where you look at, whether you look at our American politics or you look at Somalia's politics. It is brinkmanship. It is pushing people all the way to the edge where they either we fall off or you submit to me. And that's not the way it goes. We need a new way to look at it. We need a new perspective. Braver Angels is the way to go forward. That's why I'm endorsing this program. That's why when Rick and Barbara told me about it, I said, you got to bring this to my community. You got to tell this to my community, because my community will gain from this.
Okay, thank you. Rick, the way the American politics are designed, it's not my way or the highway, but it's in a kind of bipartisan way, because we have the 3 branches of government, and 60 votes are needed in order to pass any bill in the Senate. So, and nobody gets everything that they want. So why this is off the table right now in American politics? And we have seen the way the last legislation was passed because of using the...
Well, I think what's happened is, you're right, the way the Constitution has set up our system of governance, you have the 3 branches of government.
Right.
You have the federalism between the federal government, state and localities, states and localities. I think what has happened is that these forces that are dividing us, and if I might just comment, they're not just impersonal forces. There are domestic and state actors that are trying to divide us.
Okay.
Are creating incentives for politicians to not compromise, to not find synergies and alignments. And what that means is whoever wins the election swings the agenda entirely to their side, and they don't work with the other side. We're supposed to be a system where the minority has a say, and instead now it's becoming more of a majoritarian government in practice, where whoever is in charge gets their way, and the other side can just hope to win the next election and move things back their way.
Yeah, Barbara, this is a very good program. Brave Evangelists are doing good work. So where those people who want to get involved get information from?
So the best place to start, I would say, is the main website, which is braverangels.org. There on the website, you can find out how to join. You can sign up and give your email so you'll get information. You can become a member, which is just $12 for the whole year. You can see a whole list of events, and because of the pandemic, everything is being done online at the moment. So there are events in Minnesota, but you can sign up for an event happening in California or Massachusetts. And you can also, for people that are interested in becoming more involved, there's ways to volunteer. And as Rick was mentioning, we need people this is an almost entirely volunteer-run organization all throughout the country. So we need people that can run Zoom events. We need people that can organize. We need people that can talk in different communities about what's happening. And one of the real aims is for different communities to start community alliances and bring people who have different views together to talk respectfully to each other. So people that want to form an alliance in their community can contact Braver Angels and get help in how to get started with an alliance in your community. So there's a whole range, but the website is a great place to start.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Rick and Muhammad Amin. That's the end of our program today, and we are very grateful to our guests today because they are sharing with us how we can lessen or minimize the American political polarization that can lead to political conflict or maybe displace some others, as it happened in other countries in the world. Until we meet next time with a similar program, I will leave you. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.